On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks get a big win against the Indiana Pacers. Big as in the margin was big. Maybe not that the actual win was big. Against Rick Carlisle's old team. Rick Carlisle returns to the American Airlines Center. Isaac and I were both there in attendance. We'll tell you everything you need to know from that night on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good!
And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager from the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every single day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can help us get to 10,000 subscribers. So close. We're getting there. Getting real close. And joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, and contributor at Mavs.com, the Carlisle Crazy. One more thinking. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Rick Carlisle, welcome back to Dallas. When Rick took, you go back to the summer, and Rick Carlisle, greatest coach in franchise history, 13 years, led the team to the first and only title in 2011. We knew all of this. But you go back to the summer and it's like, hey, some changes are going to happen. Roster, is it going to be the roster? Is it going to be Porzingis? Is it going to be a big piece like that? Front office ends up being the front office. Donnie leaves, Rick leaves for Indiana. And you're like, dang, man, this is like one of those summers that you'll never forget, because you see these guys that, has been with the franchise for so long, and Donnie and Rick and those guys. And tonight, it's kind of, you saw the game on the schedule, January 29th. All right, Rick's, return to Dallas. And I came home and was telling my wife about it. And she's like, well, why was it such a big deal?
Yeah.
Right. Rick, okay, Rick. And it's like, well, however you want to feel about Rick Carlisle. I mean, I didn't shed a tear tonight. So, I haven't really, I haven't missed him a ton, but I respect the heck out of him for what he's brought for the franchise. And I think all of us, including myself, I felt a little bit of something when the tribute video showed. And I think the biggest shock of the whole night, Rick Carlisle getting that emotional and showing him, I did not expect that at all. And I've seen some tweets. I seen Mark follow us, share something similar on Twitter after the game. And I thought that was a very, very telling and very powerful moment with the franchise and Rick Carlisle.
Yeah, so if you didn't see this, Rick Carlisle returned for the Mavericks. This is the first time he's been back at the AAC as a coach, as not the coach of the Mavericks, right? He had, been the coach of the Mavericks for 13 years, like you said, but all through all that with the Mavericks, he ended up leaving. It was on his terms. And so he decides to go and coach the Pacers. You can make all kinds of head motions if you want, but he decides to leave, and he comes back, and the Mavs did a video tribute before the game. So, they do the normal introducing the starting lineup for the visiting Indiana Pacers. And they go through Chris Arnold or Sean Heath or whoever it was goes through the names really, really fast. Well, this one Chris Arnold went through the Pacers names really fast and then stops. And usually the lights are all on during the announcing of the visitors starting lineup. And then all of a sudden the lights went off and a video tribute just starts going about Rick Carlisle, about his time in Dallas. It show all these flashback clips of the title year and his first
Great video, by the way.
His first year, amazing video of all these clips and Carlisle going to the Mavs ball and, all these different Mavs team events and talking about, his philosophies and coaching and all, a great video montage for Rick Carlisle. And it was just a great way to look back through his time. There's stuff with Dirk, there's stuff with Luka, there's stuff with, we saw our guy Ding make an appearance in the video in the background. Shout out to Ding, Mavs summer league legend. And then at the end, they put a spotlight on Rick Carlisle, and then Chris Arnold does the whole thing. Rick Carlisle, 13-year title winning, blah blah blah, Dallas Mavericks coach. And I was proud of Mavs fans that we didn't get boos, right? And this is one of those. This is one of those situations where I think Twitter and online is different than in person, right? Where people hate Rick, they're done with Rick, they wanted Rick out and all that stuff. But then when the guy comes back and you're supposed to give him that honor, right? And say, thank you for everything that you did for this franchise. And that's what that's all about, right? We've seen all these video tributes for random players that come back and it's like, Frank Ntilikina gets a video tribute with the Knicks, just random players like that, it'll happen. And people make fun of them. But for a coach like Rick, it's when they need to happen. It's when those video tributes need to happen. And so I was really impressed to see what they did for Rick Carlisle, the tribute. And I think the emotions sort of caught him. He just saw like a decade and a little more of his life just flash before his eyes. There was that clip of his daughter hugging Dirk on Dirk's, final game. There was all those just different moments that I'm sure he's like just watching and going, like watching his hair go away, right? Like he started with the Mavericks, he had hair, and then by the end of it, he didn't have any hair. And he's just seeing that progression and just saying, man, that's a lot of my life I spent with this team, and a lot of probably really good memories and a lot of things that, he's thankful for, grateful for in his life. And I think that's what caught up to him with the emotion. And yeah, he did shed some tears, and then his team proceeded to get beat by like 30 points.
Rick Carlisle, after the game, he said, I wasn't expecting that when talking about his emotions. He said, the only other time I felt that kind of emotional moment was when we raised the banner. It was just the same kind of feeling. I was not expecting anything like that. It was just a wonderful gesture. Very much appreciated. Like I almost thought that video was like better than some of the Dirk retirement jersey video. Like it was a great moment. It was a great way to honor him being with, the team for that long. I mean, I was talking to my wife about it tonight, and it's like, man, they're just not in the coaching world. There's just not in the NBA world, especially like you don't see coaches stick around with the team that long. Like, I mean, whenever Pop hangs it up, obviously Spo in Miami, like it's not, I mean, after Rick, I mean, we're looking at Terry Stotts in Portland, and, you just don't have the longevity that, that coaches, however you agree with it or not, but you gotta respect it, man. He's one of the winningest coaches. He's a Hall of Famer, and he brought the Mavs their only title in 2011. So
you got Greg Popovich with 26 years this year, Eric Spoelstra 14 years this year. Rick Carlisle would have been 14 years with the Mavericks this year, but he's 13 with the Mavericks. And then it goes Steve Kerr 8 years, Quinn Snyder 8 years, Michael Malone with the Nuggets 7 years, Rick Carlisle. This is now his 5th year with the Pacers, so I guess that counts. He leaves and comes back, right? Like,
oh, that's weird.
If you think about it that way. And then it's like James Borrego, Dwayne Casey, Budenholzer, Nick Nurse, all at 4 years, right? Like that's not a long list of coaches that have been with a team. Like the majority of them, what is that? Like 90% have been with their team less than 5 years. And so to see a team have a coach for that long, it was incredible. It was incredible to see that. And it was an incredible run.
Yeah. And, we were obviously watching, obviously the whole, the McMahon story came out, a few months ago. It was kind of just like opening the notebook a little bit, just a glimpse of the notebook.
Talking about Rick Carlisle's exit from the Mavericks and how there was, obviously there's going to be some weird stuff back and forth. There's some drama, obviously. And, it's all the things that happen. And when a coach leaves a situation he's been in for a long time. Yeah.
And we know that, I mean, this isn't, breaking news or anything, but like Rick was a unique is a unique personality with a lot of players. I mean, that stuff dates back to before Dallas and everything. So not every player jived with Rick. So we know that we know all the reports about him and Luka and all of that. So we were, kind of watching. It's like, okay, let's just see, the Porzingis stuff in the playoffs, sticking Porzingis in the corner, which we've talked to Mike Shedd on this podcast before, assistant coach for the Mavs with Rick. Go back and listen to that podcast. But, of that decision, but like, hey, how's Luka going to feel with it? How's KP going to feel with, Rick tonight and all of that? Luka did a hand gesture to him before a tip, kind of wave, pays respect. And then we were all watching, the line after the game. Everybody, giving the hugs, and Boban and Brunson and Dorian and all the guys. And then Luka was last. Luka said this after the game. He said, I've been with him my first 3 years, and I learned a lot of things. He helped me in a way too. So it was a special moment. The tribute was special to him. You could see it, and he deserves it. They had the moment in the game. Luka, palming the ball. Rick was calling for it. All of that, and it was they're still going to be competitive with one another. But good night to welcome Rick back and to beat the crap out of him too.
To beat the crap out of his team for sure. Yeah, it was an incredible night. I was glad to see that it went over well. That he got that that line of the accepting line, I guess, at the end, the receiving line. It felt like like when you get married, it's like you have people walk through.
Porzingis was not in that line, but Porzingis was hurt, obviously.
He was not. You're true about that. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Porzingis' injury, what it means for the Mavericks. We learned if he's traveling with the team or not. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the actual game and break down how the Mavericks beat the Pacers by 30 and what to expect with the game coming up tonight. We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me quickly tell you about Built Bar. It's a protein bar. It tastes like a candy bar. They're delicious. Go check them out. Built.com. The Churro Puffs are still somehow available. You got to go get those. I ordered a box of the Churro Puffs and of the Coconut Brownie Chunk. Churro Puff, 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, 6 grams of sugar, bar covered in 100% chocolate, plus little marshmallow center in the middle. It's good stuff. They're pretty good for you. They got protein in them as well. So you're eating something that tastes good, but it also helps you get through, a lull in your day, or you have meals that you're trying to, you're trying not to eat as much between meals. Boom, eat a Built Bar. Check it out. Go to Built.com. Again, promo code is LOCKED15. Use that promo code to get 15% off your entire order at Built.com.
Boom, eat a Built Bar.
Eat it. Do it. Eat it. All right, Isaac, let's get into this game. So the Dallas Mavericks get the win against the Indiana Pacers. They score 132 points. Again, 2 games in a row, Mavs scored 132. I looked at, I was sitting next to Doyle at Kobe Beef on Twitter. I looked next to him. I was like, man, when's the last time the Mavs scored 130 points? And I looked at their schedule. I was like, oh yeah, last game, the very most recent time the Mavs played. They beat the Pacers 132 to 105. This one, you can just look at the game chart and look at just the lead tracker. The Pacers never led in this game. The Mavs won wire to wire. I think Chuck Cooperstein said it was the second game they've done that. The Blazers game was another one, and they've had wire to wire wins 5 out of the last 8 games. I think Chuck Cooperstein tweeted that out. But they just took control, and there was times when the Pacers would make little runs to come back in this game, but it really was just the Mavericks in that third quarter just really taking control of this game. And the Pacers defense, especially their interior defense, without Miles Turner, without Gogo Batadze, without Isaiah Jackson having enough experience, basically, like they just didn't have enough inside, and the Mavericks could get that pick and roll going. It was kind of ironic that the thing that Rick Carlisle just, pushed the most with Tyson Chandler, with Brandon Wright, with Dwight Powell, actually, with the pick and roll, just like ripped the Pacers apart in this game.
Yeah, because, Sabonis isn't the best defender in the world, so
he's not, and he's also small. Like he's like a 7 foot. He's not a 7-footer. He's like 6'9". He's like Maxi's size, right? So it's just he can't defend the way that.
But he's so dang good on offense. I love
so
Sabonis.
Good, very good.
He'd be amazing. But just to you threw out a few stats that Chuck threw out, and it's just to kind of capture this kind of run that the Mavs are on right now. They've won 13 of their last 16 games, 2 straight games have scored 130 plus. They have not trailed in 5 of their last 8 games.
Wire to wire wins. Yeah,
right. Like they're on a stretch right now that's pretty crazy, and that's why we've been talking with if you haven't listened, the past 2 days we've dropped 2 straight pods on Friday and Saturday. You listen to this on Sunday before the Chiefs beat the Bengals, and Jake Fisher. Dang, Nick didn't even catch that. Yeah, I said you're listening to this before the Chiefs beat the Bengals, but Jake Fisher was on this.
I'm blocking that out of my brain right now.
He was on this pod the past 2 days, so go listen to that as they talk about trade rumors and all
I have
of that.
I have your cup. Do you want this cup? Do you want me to give you
the money line for the Bengals game? No, but the whole thing with Dallas right now, especially coming up to the trade deadline, is like, hey, they've been playing so well, so should they break it up? Like, should they trade some of the pieces? Should they try to go all in? Should they swing for something? Should they do just stand pat and just like run with it because they're playing so well? It's like this is part of the argument, right? It's like, hey, we've won 13 of the past 16. We haven't trailed in a game in 5 of the last 8. We haven't trailed in a game, so it's like they're on a stretch right now that you have to. I think fans have to. I think fans are doing it already, but the front office is doing the same thing of saying, well, dang, how good are we? Like, that's what we're trying to figure out, because you go into a Pacers game like this, and it's like, I guess it is disrespect to them, but like they just weren't going to win this game. So second half gets going and, they stretch the lead out. And it's like, all right, Rick's is like, hey, can I just get home to the fam?
And the Pacers were without, we said Miles Turner. They were without Malcolm Brogdon. They were without, a lot of guys. They had,
TJ Warren's still out.
TJ McConnell, Gogo Batadze, like we said. They had, Duarte, LeVert, Sabonis, and it was kind of it. And Dwayne Washington Jr., their two-way guy, kind of surprised us.
Nice.
Really good looking, quick shot. He was getting to the rim. He had 22 points off the bench. I thought he had a really, really good game. Lance Stevenson chucking up shots, trying to do his thing. But yeah, in this game, the Mavericks, they took control. And then I also thought it was the Mavericks winning a game in a way that they hadn't before. They allowed the Pacers to score 37 points in the second quarter. And then in the third quarter, they come out and they only allowed 20 points. And they just I felt like they really locked up on the defensive end. It just felt like the Mavericks decided, all right, this is the quarter we're going to defend our butts off, right? And Rick always used to talk about, if you can hold a team to under 25 points in a quarter, that's a win. Okay, well, you hold a team to 20 points in a quarter, that's a really big win for the Mavericks. And you had out there, Dorian played a bunch of minutes in that quarter. Bullock played a good, decent amount. Josh Green, Frank Ntilikina, Maxi Kleber, like you got your defensive guys out there. And if Porzingis is not part of that rotation, and Tim Hardaway's not part of that rotation, especially, all of a sudden you have more defensive guys that you can go out there and have quarters like that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at 3-point shooting for Indiana tonight, 9 of 33. I mean, 27%. I'm like, that feels like a line out of the Mavericks box score right there, shooting 27% from three. But you go across to Dallas's side, 47% from three tonight, 16 of 34. They hit 16 threes tonight. That's a lot. That's like a lot for Dallas. Three players, hitting more than three threes in this game, and Maxi, Luka, and Reggie Bullock. But yeah, they're playing better defensively. They took care of the ball tonight. They only had 5 turnovers as a team in this entire game. That's huge. Like Luka had 0 turnovers at halftime. Like that's big time for a guy that played. I mean, he played into the second quarter, which, that started a little bit a while back, but playing the whole first quarter, his rotation, his minutes to switch up a little bit.
They had 5 turnovers, and 2 of them were from Marquise Chris, and 2 of them were from Dwight Powell.
Sheesh.
Another one from Dorian. Like their turnovers didn't come from ball handlers. It just came from, some of the guys, like some of the bigger guys out there. They just took over this game. There was nothing really the Pacers could do. It felt like, especially when the Mavericks could lock up like they did in that third quarter to outscore them 32-20. And I felt like that was the big, huge turning point of the game. There was different moments that really jumped out in this game. Reggie Bullock's run at the end of the second quarter when you and I went to go get something to eat.
That's true. Yeah.
Like literally we get up, we were like, this, they're going to end this quarter, whatever. And then all of a sudden we just hear every 5 seconds, Reggie Bullock, like just over and over again. He goes on a run. He scores 14 points just in the second quarter alone. He went 5 of 5 from the field, 3 of 3 from 3. A lot of those in transition. Just an incredible little run from Reggie in that game. And now it's been 2 games in a row.
Hot man, the hot player.
Where Reggie Bullock gets the hot player of the game with Tim Hardaway Jr. out, as he finally is new year, new Reggie. This is kind of a thing for him, that every year at the turn of the year, he just basically becomes this different type of player. We finally hitting that with Reggie. He finished the game 6 of 8 from 3, 23 points. That's a season high for him.
Heck yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I think Reggie's a better player than Tim, but especially now with Tim out for the year, which shout out to Tim. Tim was there at the game tonight, had his little, the little
cast brace, something.
Yeah, he had his cast stuff on, but what's the little thing you put your leg up on? The
crutches?
Scooter. No, he had a little scooter going across the floor, gave Rick a big hug and all that. But yeah, with Tim being out, we've been wondering hey, how are they going to fill the minutes off the bench? Tim, plays 30 minutes a night, scores around 14, 15 points a game. How can they cover that? Reggie played his typical 24, except he had 23 points tonight. So we've been looking at, after that last game, we're like, all right, can Josh and Frank Ntilikina kind of combine together to give you what Tim could give you? Tonight they played a little bit more minutes because it was a blowout, but still, you look at the points there. Josh had 12 points in this game. Frank Ntilikina had 9 points in this game. It's like, all right, cool. 21 points between the two. I get some of that came, there at the end of the game when it was a blowout and all that. But I think right now, as the roster is currently constructed, that's what we're looking at. And what does this look like when Reggie's not hitting? Because we've seen that here for a couple of games when, Tim's been out, Reggie's hitting. It looks amazing tonight. Reggie hitting those 6 of 8 threes. Some of them, were off the dribble or sidestep, step back. It's like, let's go. Love Reggie Bullock. But what happens in the next game where he's 1 for 9 and then the spotlight's even bigger on the Josh Green, Frank Ntilikina role. It's like, all right, one of you guys, each of you got to give me like 10 points each or something.
Well, in a playoff rotation, I don't think you're looking at Josh or. I don't think you're looking at Josh and Frank, right? You're just looking at one of those guys. And what it would really be on is Dorian, Maxi, Reggie, and then probably Porzingis too, to hit threes, right? Like one of those guys has to, if all four of those guys aren't hitting threes, then you're probably not winning games, right? That's just kind of the way it comes down to, because those guys get the most catch and shoot threes on the team by far. So it's going to come down to those guys. And if none of those guys are hitting, that's what all of a sudden your odds just go down. And that's why having Tim was a great luxury, because all of a sudden he could come in and fill it up. And he could be another guy that adds to that. So, all right, you got 5 guys that are going to get a bunch of catch and shoot threes. If all 5 of those guys go cold, it's bad for the Mavs. But what are the chances of all 5 of those guys going cold for the Mavericks? So, but yeah, Reggie Bullock, a great game for him. Helped on the defensive end for sure, and then filled it up on the other end that we haven't seen a lot. Luka was doing his thing early. He was getting it done. It felt like he had this game circled on the calendar a little bit. First quarter felt like he was really trying to go out there and get, and fill it up. He had 14 points, 5 assists, and just in the first quarter. He was 3 of 6 from 3, and he was chucking threes at a certain point. He was like, I'm stepping up and I'm stepping into this 3. I'm going to take
9 shots in the first quarter.
Nobody can tell me not to. He finished the game with 30 and 12 assists. So another really good game for Luka. Porzingis, though, we got to talk about him. Porzingis goes out with in the beginning of the second quarter. He checked out with about 8 minutes and 54 seconds left. He did not return to the game, and Dwight started for him at the beginning of the second half. Porzingis will also not travel to Orlando. The Mavericks play a game tonight, Sunday night, in Orlando against Jamal Mosley's team. So 2 former coaches basically back-to-back, which is interesting. But what do we think about Porzingis now? He has a knee issue, and it is the same knee he had the meniscus tear in at the end of the bubble season.
Yeah, we're recording this around 10 p.m. Central Time after the game, and I haven't seen a play or anything that's circulated that if something happened or anything like that. It was news to us in the press box whenever the news came out. We were all talking about it. It's like, oh, okay, guess that happened. I guess something's going on there. There's no positive thing to say about it, right? I mean, this is kind of the Porzingis experience right now, and you just have to cross your fingers and hope that this isn't. I mean, Tim McMahon's tweet after the game, hope is that it's not a serious issue. Right. That was the last line of that tweet, and I'm sure we'll find out something over the next few days. And not playing in Orlando, like you said, not even traveling. So I'd be surprised if he plays on Wednesday, but we'll see. We'll see how it affects. Does it affect anything, over the next week and a half heading into the trade deadline? I mean, I think it's hard for us to say anything until we know definitive, what's going on. Is it just a little bit of soreness, he'll be back Wednesday or something like that? Or if it's something longer, does it affect anything before the deadline? I'll be curious.
There's a million factors in this, right? There's, okay, what kind of knee soreness could it be? If it's just a little knee soreness and there's not anything actually hurt or injured with it, I guess, then they could just be super cautious. And they're playing Orlando, right? They're playing Orlando. They don't feel like
Mo Bamba.
And they don't feel like you need to push Porzingis to try and play this game. Second night of a back-to-back, traveling as well. They leave Dallas and they go all the way to Orlando and have to play that game on Sunday night. But then there's also he didn't return to the game, and he's also not traveling with the team. It's usually not a good sign when someone doesn't travel. So there's one of two sides of it, and I'm assuming that you've decided which side you're on if you're listening to this. I'm either very optimistic or I'm very pessimistic about this Porzingis injury. If he's not traveling, then that's a bad sign, or they're just being very cautious and optimistic because it is that same knee he had the meniscus tear in. They don't want to push him at all, and so they're letting him stay back and letting him just wait until the next game. The Mavericks play at Orlando, and then they come back home on Wednesday against the Thunder, and then they have the Sixers on Friday, and then they have the Hawks at home on Sunday, and then they have the Pistons the next Tuesday at home, and then they have the Clippers They have a big home stretch coming up after this. So if he doesn't travel for this game, there's a big home stretch for him to come back and play in, hopefully.
For sure. And maybe coming up after the break.
As a weekend pod, we don't have to do a second break.
Oh, okay. See, I was all thrown off. I'm like, dang, he's just going over time.
No, weekend pod. We only have to do one
screw that. We don't even need breaks. Who needs money?
Just the first one.
I think you said, it depends on where you're at. If you're looking at positive or negative, it's like, however you feel as a person, like I tend to lean more positive on a lot of things, but you have to be like realistic too. Like there's been so many like, so many of these situations, for KP that this is, you almost just have to accept it right now that, this is kind of what you get sometimes of a bang knee, or I don't even know if this was a play or anything. So I think we'll wait to see what happens with that. They obviously need him. Losing Tim and Kristaps Porzingis together, for extended time. I mean, that's a lot of offense. That's a lot of points there that you're losing. So Moses Brown. Just kidding.
I was like, no, it's really Dwight Powell and Marquise Chris that are the ones that have to step up in his absence. Right?
I mean, it's step up, but like that's just like their roles are kind of defined of, hey,
but they're just gonna have to play more minutes.
Yeah, like run more pick and roll.
They will. That's what they're gonna do.
Let's run pick and roll for days. I do want to give Maxi Kleber a shout out tonight. 14 rebounds for Maxi. I mean, a 15 and 14 game. He's 3 of 5 from 3
on his birthday.
5 of 9 from the field. His birthday. Let's go, Maxi. There was a great in-arena moment tonight. Okay. So they did this question, they ask all these questions of players on media day. If you, I'm doing a lot of plugs tonight.
We were one of those people that asked them questions on media day.
Yeah. So go back and listen to our media day interviews with all players. We ask them dumb questions too. But one of the questions they asked the entire team was which player on the team can eat an entire cake? And so, they're obviously the camera set up, they're interviewing each player one by one, right? So as soon as the question's asked and they're going to play the like montage of clips, I'm just sitting there like immediately, you're going to think of what freaking teammate's going to say Luka Doncic. Somebody's going to say Luka.
The question is which player can eat an entire cake, and you're just sitting there waiting for them to go.
You're like, dang it, some teammate's going to say it. Or I'm like, you know what? They're not going to because it's, become a thing. So the first few guys answer it and they're like, Dwight. Yeah, Dwight could do it. It's Dwight.
A couple answered
Boban.
Oh yeah. There were a handful of people who said Boban. But then there were like 3 people who said Luka. It was like Trey Burke and then Dorian. And as soon as Dorian said it, he started dying laughing. And then of course, Brunson said Luka. But he said, Bobby too. And then a lot of people said Bobby. But then there were like a handful of people who said Maxi, and it was like happy birthday to Maxi. But
what a weird question. Who could eat an entire birthday cake?
I think it's kind of funny. I think it was kind of clever. It was a funny question.
Oh my gosh.
Shout out to Josh Green playing 24 minutes against Rick.
Shout out to Franken Greens. That's what I'm calling him now. Franken Greens. Frank Ntilikina and Josh Green getting some extra extended run now with the blowout plus no Tim Hardaway Jr. Those two guys, I think, have a big opportunity, right? They're going to be asked to play at times. And I think come playoff rotation time, if Tim is not back, one of those two guys will get one of those spots, right? Whoever is ready enough. And they've been playing together a lot recently. And they've both been doing stuff. Both been doing positive stuff. They've been coming in at the same times. And but yeah, one of them has to pull away if they want to get that extra playoff minutes, I think. Yeah,
I think there's a chance that's a player that's not on the team right now that's coming off the bench.
Sure. Yeah, no, but as currently constructed, this is the stretch that could define their season.
Because it's already been defined. Because when we talk about playoff rotation, because a lot of times in the playoffs, these rotations shrink, right? Like they go down to like 8 players, sometimes 9 players.
Unless you're Nick Nurse, and then it's like 7 in the regular season.
Now Rick liked to play like 10 sometimes, but when you look at this team right now, even without Tim, you have your starting 5: Dorian, Maxi, KP, Brunson, Luka, and then that off the bench you have Dwight and Reggie. it's like, all right, well, if they're going to run like a tight 8-man rotation, maybe even 9, who's going to be that like third spot? But man, if you you got to have offense. So that's
would
where
have been Tim.
Would have been Tim, but that's where a Goran Dragic, that's where a Kemba Walker, that's where
Dennis
a guy
Schroeder.
out there, Dennis Schroeder, a vet playmaker, a vet guy who can get some points. Like, I think, the Tim thing we've talked about over the past few days, losing Tim, I think it does put like a little bit more emphasis on, hey, we got to get somebody else. Whether it's somebody super cheap at the deadline, whether it's somebody in the buyout market, if they don't know if Dragic is coming. Well, shout out to Dragic just chilling in Miami while he's like off from
plays
the Raptors.
Plays for the Toronto Raptors, is in Miami just watching Miami games.
Get that paycheck. Goran. Let's
Do
go.
It. He's being paid.
Cash those checks. I love it. But like, yeah, I think they do need some type of. I don't think, I could be going on the limb right here. I don't think Trey Burke's the answer. So they might be trying to add at least another source of offense off the bench.
Yep, absolutely. Anything else stand out to you in this game? We talked about Maxi Kleber on his birthday having a good one. We talked about Franklin Green's getting some opportunity. Reggie Bullock was the
hot man, the hot player.
And in his post-game interview, Dorian did the video bomb and said hot playa at Reggie Bullock. So this drop is here to stay.
Man, the hot player.
That drop is here to stay for sure. Brunson, I thought had some really, really good moments in this game. He just continues to be consistent. 13 points, 8 assists in 32 minutes, but they didn't need him to score that much. They didn't need him to take over in this game. There were other avenues of scoring, but he keeps racking up these assist games where he's dishing out a bunch of assists, and this is not something we had seen from Brunson in the past.
No, I will say this. There was a random thing that Jason Kidd did, and that was like, okay, what are we doing?
That was bad.
It was very confusing to me, and playing with fire a little bit. The fourth quarter.
I know what it was. Yeah.
What? The fourth quarter, they're basically up by 20 most of the half. The Pacers cut it to 60. Like, he already threw in the white flag and brought out Trey Burke, brought out Theo Pinson. Like, Trey, Theo, and those guys already checked into the game, okay? And it was like, all right, you've already like threw out the white flag. This game's over. Pacers cut it to 16. And he's like, all right, go back in. Luke, at what point did Luka and them check back in?
Yeah, so Luka didn't play the entire fourth quarter. The Mavericks basically had a 20-point lead going into the fourth quarter. They had gotten up to 30 at one point, and then it got cut to 16, like you said. And Luka comes back in Luka and Dorian both come back in at the 4-minute mark when it's a 16-point game. And so it was just.
And then Brunson and Dwight, like, and Reggie, like the whole 5 came back. Like, Rick had already threw in the towel too. He wasn't even getting up. He was just like,
no,
hey,
he had O'Shea Brissett and Dwayne Washington Jr. And like, he didn't have his, and Isaiah Jackson was getting his run before he fell out. Like and Jeremy Lamb, like they didn't have anybody real in that game.
No, I didn't understand it. I was like, man, you're really playing fire. Like, if somebody got hurt in those last few minutes, like they didn't play very long. They only played like a minute. They came in and played like a minute and a half or so, especially on the first night of a back. Anyway, I don't want to like nitpick all, but it was just very, very confusing, very, very like weird. And if somebody got hurt, it would have been a huge, huge storyline.
There was a weird thing where there's some kids behind the bench that were talking the whole time and cheering, and they like painted their chests and like weird stuff. And then Luka motioned to them when he was going back in the game at the end. To me, it was like, is he going back in because those kids were like, hey, we came here to see Luka and he's not going to play the whole fourth quarter? Hey, you don't draw that conclusion, but hey, I'm telling you, there's .A, .B. If you want to draw the line, you can. But he did put in the rest of like everybody else too.
Yeah,
just weird.
It was just odd. Anyway, good win. They took care of business. This is what you do against bad teams. I know they've had injuries and stuff this year, the Pacers, but I was dead wrong on them. Like I thought Rick would take that roster and that team, which
I don't think we saw them enough together. I looked it up before the game. Sabonis, Turner, Brogdon, and LeVert only played in 19 games together this season.
Okay, that's
just not enough to know what a team is, right? Especially with a new coach. So I'm buying that this is a lost season for the Pacers. Shout out to Miles Turner. Straight up wearing a poncho and cowboy boots on the bench in Dallas. Like,
homie was
trying to send messages talk about trying to send messages to a team that may trade for you.
He's like, I'm trying to be in Yellowstone the next season. Had his cowboy boots, wore a cowboy hat on the bench. Hat, and it had like that like pullover, like you said, the poncho. And like, anyway, he's probably like, can I just stay? Do I have to fly back? Can I just stay?
Yeah,
here
right.
in case?
Shout out to the Trinity High School, Brad.
I promise my foot is fine. Please just make a trade.
See that scooter that Tim has? I don't need one of those. I'm good. I don't need one of those. There you go. We'll be back with another episode talking about the Orlando Magic win, hopefully, or if the Mavericks don't win, then we'll be talking about how a disastrous season this has been. So either way, we'll break one of those down. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.